Hi, welcome back to my greenhouse. My name is Christopher, as always. Yeah, it's been a little over a year since I started using this geothermal greenhouse, and I thought it could be fun to do a video on my experience so far. I have to say, spoiler alert, it's working out perfect for me, and this year is really gonna show. So I'm gonna end this video with some questions from you guys. I asked you in the previous video just to give me some quick questions about the project, and because there's most certainly something that I forget to mention, so it's nice to have some questions from you guys. So yeah, let's just go inside and check out the system and see how it's working so far. So last year was the first season I tried to grow stuff in here, and I have to tell you, it didn't go very well. I had a rough start. So I have two fans now, one in each corner, opposite corners. And I also have automatic venting in the roof, and I'm gonna show you detailed of what that's like. I also have the door open now, but in the beginning, when I started last year, I didn't have the venting system. I only have one fan running for cooling in the daytime, and I didn't open the door. And I was kind of thinking that, well, warm weather is nice. So I wasn't expecting it to get that far, and I didn't also have many of the sensors that I have now. So I wasn't really in tune with the temperatures in here and the moisture level, the air humidity and everything. So it was a rough start, and I had to sacrifice some of my plants and almost my sweet cherry trees in that process, because it was I learned that it was about 45 degrees Celsius here a few days in the beginning of last summer, and nothing really enjoys that, especially not some of the things that I'm growing in here. So yeah, it was a rough start. I was thinking that last year was kind of the year where I wanted to get all my sensors in, and I wanted to get my automation of the venting, and I wanted to have my fans running, trying to establish a decent temperature in the ground. And that really just took last season, I think. I was focusing on that, not so much on my plants. This year I'm switching it around. Now my system is up and running, and I'm much more in tune with my plants, and things are looking a lot better, I have to say. So you're probably most interested in the data about this. Outside temperature in soil outside now is about 10 degrees Celsius. And underneath here, 2 meters down, it's 19, 20, I guess it's about 20 degrees. I haven't checked. So I haven't checked today. Yesterday it was 19.5 degrees or something, 2 meters down. So the temperature rises in the daytime when I'm pumping air down into the system, and it just continues to push out the cold air from, or the cooler air from below. And every day it goes a little bit above the last day, at least the days that we have sun. So it's slowly rising, and based on 0 degrees Celsius, I have twice as much down in the soil compared to what's outside. So that really helps me. And I get a lot of questions in the comments on my videos about people wanted to learn how I grew things here last winter. And that's kind of not the main goal for this. I found out when I was building the system, and I really started to learn how to use it last year. It's phenomenal for my main goal, which is to keep a steady temperature all day and all night through the summer season, and of course the autumn, also the spring, but most importantly the summer and the autumn. Because outside we have temperatures all the way down to 0, almost 0, even in the summertime. And when you get into August, we can have really cool nights, and September we get our first frost dates sometimes. So it was important for me to have a system where I could really have some of the exotic plants like peppers growing in here at a steady lower temperature. So I would be able to keep them growing and not stunt the growth too much with the cold temperatures. And I have to say that really works out perfect. And as for the winter time, I never intended to grow stuff here year round. That's mainly not because of the geothermal system, but because this greenhouse isn't intended to be heated at winter. It has really bad insulation. It's I think it's 10 millimeter polycarbonate, 3-layer, but that wasn't my first initial plan. I just was lucky and was able to get this greenhouse at a really good price. So I kind of just jumped on that, but my initial thought was to build a greenhouse, and I wanted to have isolated wall on that side and on that side and on half the roof. So I would only have the south facing area open for sunlight. And that way I intended to be able to grow year round. But as things changed, I decided to go with this greenhouse for now. It's probably going to stay a while, but since I went with this greenhouse, I really just put aside all my plans for growing year round in this greenhouse. So the only thing that had to survive here last year was my fig tree, this beauty, and also my rosemary bush. Those two were the only ones that really couldn't take a lot of cool temperature. And at least the rosemary, I think it will probably disappear when you dip below 0 degrees Celsius. So those were my main focuses this year, and I talked a little bit about that last season. But what I did this winter was, I can see if I can find an image, and I'll just post it somewhere here. So what I did was I just made a plastic casing for this whole area, and that way I only had a small area that I had to keep below or above 0 or freezing temperature. And what I did, I made that, and I put in some electronics and some temperature controllers and stuff like that. And I put a fan. I disassembled the geothermal part, and I put in a much smaller fan, which circulated the air down and back up again into the area. And that way I was able to keep it above 0 degrees the whole winter. And that worked perfect. So when we got into better weather this spring, I just removed the whole thing and I reestablished my geothermal setup. And yeah, the plants are thriving, both of them, and we have a lot of figs growing on the tree now, and that really is something that wouldn't be possible up here. I could probably grow the most hardy fig tree outside, but it would have a huge, yeah, it would be really reasonable to think that would die over the years, and it would most certainly die down to ground level, so it would have to regrow every single year. But what I want to do here, and my goal is to have this as a tree section where I have my huge fig. This is obviously my main focus from the tree standpoint. The sweet cherry trees are growing like mad. They need some trimming, but yeah, I want to keep that year round, every single year. So I'm gonna slowly build and overperform on my setup for next winter. And as the tree grows, I would have to modify it slightly every single year. But yeah, the system is working perfect for that. And also, where we live, we don't have sun at all for parts of the winter. So when it's mid-December, the sun only peaks over the horizon about 30 minutes a day. And that wouldn't be sufficient to grow something in here either way. So for those of you who are living in an area where it's cold at winter time, but you get a lot of sun, or a lot of sun, everything is relatively, but if you get some decent sun in the winter time, you would probably be able to grow year round with this kind of geothermal setup. Okay, so what I have been experimenting with is I'm pulling down the air from my fans, and I'm pushing out the air from some tubes that are underneath you, and I'm gonna show that also. That allows me to be able to just get a good flow. So these pipes that the air is coming out from are made for now, at least, so I can just twist the top outlets, and I could steer the airflow how I wanted to. And my initial thought, and from what I've seen people have done with this kind of setup, is extending the pipe all the way up to the roof, to be able to harvest the most, to harvest the warmest air. But in my experiments, and with some sensors that I have, temperature sensors, I have actually measured that having the inlet all the way up, almost up to the roof on the corners, that's actually where it's the hottest, because on top I'm opening up my vents in the summertime. So that lets cool air in, and that would just go into the system, and it wouldn't be as efficient as possible. So one of the mistakes that I made last year was that I was so much focused on getting it as hot as possible, so I would heat up the base the fastest possible. But that really wasn't working too well, and I see that now from this year, reading through my sensors, having about 20 degrees down here now, that's actually not worse than last year. But last year it was so much more closed, and I wasn't paying too much attention to the airflow, so the circulation and the ventilation. But this year I have been really focusing on opening the door, and also my vents are opening up at 25, 26, 27 degrees Celsius, I can't remember, and they're adjusting the opening percentage based on the temperature. And seeing on my data now that it's actually working out at least as good as last year for storing the heat. So I would say that ventilating, because there's so much heat going in from the sun, and with this kind of system I wouldn't be able to harvest the whole thing, so I might as well just let some of the air out and have a nice circulation for my plants. And I think that's really required when you're growing, especially when you're growing tomatoes inside. When you get huge tomato bushes, they tend to let out a lot of water, or they evaporate a lot of water, and that really makes it humid in here. So getting a good circulation, that really helps. Issues with the system, nothing at all. No bad smell, no fungus, no nothing. I've even put I have a camera on a wire, so I went down into the pipes just to check if there was any mold or anything, and there was nothing at all. The pipes are completely cleaned, and I haven't had any problem at all with the smell or anything. It works just perfectly. So I've seen people online are concerned about mold growing and things like that, but in my case at least, that's not a problem or an issue at all. I have good drainage in the bottom of the reservoir, and yeah, it doesn't stay with water. And probably a good thing with my perforated pipes is that it actually lets the air in and out, and that way fungus or mold doesn't grow as easy. It's just my guess. So the setup is working nice. I have everything now on sensors. So I have temperature sensor a couple of places down into the soil, so I know the temperature of the soil. I also have a temperature sensor over here at 1 meter height about. And I also have temperature sensor in the roof. I have temperature weather station outside. I also have a soil temperature sensor down 2 meters outside the greenhouse, where one of the big poles that you see me holding on to in the beginning. And what else? What else? Oh, the watering system. I also put in a watering system these days, the last days. And that's also controlled via my microcontrollers. So they will start watering each bed separately at separate times, and I can control the whole thing. So I'm able to keep, because I have the only water I have into this greenhouse is just a hose from the garage, so it's bad pressure, really bad pressure. But that's the thing that I have, so that's why I've separated the watering system, so I only water one line at a time, and that way I have a good flow, and I'm able to grow it nice. So yeah, water it nice. That works. Anything else? Yeah, I'm not sure. Should we do some questions? Yeah. So let's do some questions that you posted on my last video. I told you I was gonna show you the whole thing and how it works, and I also am gonna try to see if I can show some of the statistics that I have on my computer, so from my microcontrollers and my sensors, and I'm gonna put all of that at the end of the video, so make sure you stick around. Okay, I was just gonna look through the questions, and the first one: could you explain again how to calculate the amount of pipes is needed for the heating system? I have no idea. I have no idea. So you should check some of my last videos where I detail what the pipes are, and the dimensions, and the meters, length, everything. I don't remember, and frankly I don't care. It works as I intended, and that's the only thing that I know. There's so many things that people have to say about this kind of setup, and it doesn't work, and it doesn't this, and it doesn't that. And while I do agree with many of the comments about the system and the efficiency and everything, I would still have to say that for me and for the economics of running this, it's working perfectly. So so yeah. Things you would have done differently. So that's from Gardening Pacific Northwest. Things you would have done differently. I'm not sure, but I have on your left side here, I have the system running into a manifold, and it separates into separate pipes, and they all run parallel, and then back into a manifold and out again. That works nice. On the other side, I have one system running back and forth. I probably would have done the manifold setup if I were to do it again. I also probably would have scaled the size of the pipes, and that's just to avoid drag in the pipes, and the resistance is it's noticeable on at least the system where the pipes are running just back and forth for a gazillion meters and back out again. But in the end, what I have found through my sensors is that the temperature at the end of the season is entirely the same. So I'm not sure. It might be that this side of the system is a bit slower, but I don't know. In the end, it just works for me. Temperature difference from outside to inside on the coldest day and on the warmest day. So yeah, about the temperature in ground, that's about 20 degrees in here and about 10 degrees outside. For the temperature inside the greenhouse, it stays above 15 degrees Celsius. As long as I run the system at night, it stays above 15 degrees Celsius at night. And that could be at least 10 degrees colder outside, and it will still have a good temperature inside here. So so there's a big difference. And when nothing is running in springtime, there's before everything has started, that's at least 3-4 3 degrees Celsius difference in nighttime from inside and outside, just based on the residual heat from the ground rising up at night. So there's a difference. Inlet and outlet airflow temperature of the pipe itself in comparison to outside temperatures. Yeah, so again, the temperature inside here will be warmer in the daytime, and the inlet will be the temperature in the greenhouse, and the outlet would be almost exactly the same as the temperature down. So when I say that it's 20 degrees in the ground, it will probably put out 21, 22 degrees Celsius from the exhaust pipes. So yeah, it just shows that almost all of the temperature going into the ground is left back in the ground. So Jay is asking, as others have asked, data on outdoor indoor temperature difference and how much the system is able to rise it on an average. So yeah, I'm gonna try to see if I can show some on-screen time from my computer and try to just explain a little bit about the temperature differences and how I measure it. And that's actually, I think that's an open site. So if I don't remember correct or wrong, I think I have it open, or at least I will make it open. I think it's open, and I think actually some of you are following that. So the whole data plan for this, all the temperature, everything, all the readouts is available online, and I'll of course post a link to that. Fan specifications, yeah. So yeah, I'll detail that down, but the fans are coming on at different temperatures through the season, and that's just because when it's colder in the ground, I have it set lower, the threshold is lower, but now it has to be warmer because the soil is so much warmer, so that changes. But the data will show that. How do you manage humidity? So yeah, that's a great question, because humidity, the only way to get rid of that is opening up the greenhouse. So I need to open the vents in the roof, and also I'm having the door open. That's, yeah, also to bring in some pollinators so they can fly back in and out. And yeah, but humidity, you have to get rid of it. And I learned a lesson from that last year. Did the fig survive in the greenhouse? Could you talk about how you automate, I'm sorry, I'm reading bad, how you automate program the fans? Really interested in this, as I am an AE, not sure, looking to use natural ventilation for the entire homes. So yeah, everything here is programmed. I'm using the particle platform for my microcontrollers. I was thinking about creating my own microcontrollers. I've done that in separate projects where I just, like the hydroponic growing station, everything was designed from ground up with my custom microcontrollers. And yeah, I just went with the particle system here. I'm using particle mesh, and everything is connected. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 computers, I think, IoT devices, and they're all connected together. And actually these days I'm working on like a dashboard where I could set all the settings, and I could toggle my watering, and I could change the schedules for things and everything. So I have one managed space, one dashboard where I could do everything. And I was also thinking about putting in a touch screen so I could just go inside here and click settings on and off. So yeah, I could talk more about that if that's interesting. Have you thought about adding some extra heater inside? Wood stove if you have free firewood available, or maybe even DIY beer can air heater outside of the greenhouse, trying to heat up the soil during sunny days. Yeah, so yeah, I've been thinking about that, but the thing is that it's a plastic house, and The layout here is not suitable for bringing in stuff like that. So what I'm thinking of doing, I had a horrible thing happening to my cherry trees this year. I lost all the flower buds, and that was just because I wasn't running the system early on. It's the tree started to bud up, and I wasn't paying attention, and yeah, they just froze. So we had some really cold days in May, and it just froze. So what I'm going to do next year is trying to place an electric heater in here, and just use that as a backup when it's really cold outside and my system won't provide the heat that's needed in the beginning of the season. I realize this season was a relatively mild winter in Norway, but what were some of the biggest temperature differences between the outside and the inside of the greenhouse? So again, I wasn't running this as a system for having temperature here in wintertime. The system wasn't running for the whole greenhouse. It was only for the fig, mainly the fig tree. And that was the temperature difference from outside and into that area was probably 25, almost 30 degrees Celsius in difference, I think. So yeah, that was a huge difference. Have you noticed how big the period is when the sun have little to no effect on the heat of the greenhouse? Yeah, as I was talking about an example, the days of full sun in December. Yeah. Again, there's yeah. I've been noticing that for several years. I've been tracking the sun, and I have a log, and I just write down the sunrise and sunset from the horizon, or from over the hill where we live here. And yeah, it's horrible. You can't grow anything on that in that light, and it most certainly doesn't provide any heat at all on the coldest, darkest days. What are some of the main things you would have done differently if you would to do it again? Again, maybe some of the pipes. Other than that, I'm really satisfied with this setup. Ever considered a house within a dome? Don't tell my wife, but I really want that. Yeah, I've watched so many videos about that, and I'm hoping someday I will convince her that that's a totally sensible thing to do. Did you keep any lights in the greenhouse during spring or fall? Nope. I haven't been using that at all. That's just because I start my seeds and my plants indoors, because I need to start them early, February, March, and I bring them outside when the temperature and the sun is ready, and when we roll into spring, we have really decent lighting. And now it's 9 p.m. and the sun is still way up there, so the sun goes below the horizon at about 10:30 p.m. these days. So we have a lot of sun right now, but I haven't been using any additional lighting. So Stacy is seriously interested in the weather where the greenhouse is located, such as low and high temperature. I'm in a desert, and range is all over the place, and wind here is not to be underestimated. 2 seasons really, summer and winter, but the central of a jet stream, unique and miserable is my take on it. So yeah, the weather, we have some decent weather. I don't know how technical I could get about that. I'll just link to some details about the weather that we have here on a median. Did you solve the moisture? I did not soil. Did you solve the moisture level problem working on retrofitting the GH into a passive solar greenhouse? Stay safe. Yeah, so I did manage. I just opened it up, open up the vents and the door. The vents is sufficient enough, but the door is also nice to have. Do you have a cutoff temperature controlling the fan where you don't push air down when it's below a certain minimum in the greenhouse in the summer and don't so yeah, I do have that. I have a temperature, so now it's off, and that's because it's cooler here, so I don't need to run it. But when it gets colder, it will start back up again, and it will just shut down when the temperature rises, and it will start up again once the temperature reaches a certain level. Is there any data evidence to suggest the heat stored in the summertime can be used in the winter and late autumn? Yeah, so definitely. I'll see, as I mentioned, the data. Most definitely. I think I had... So I shut down the system because I didn't want to plant a fall crop in here. I just, when everything was sort of gone, I just decided to shut down the system and call it a season. And but when I did, the temperature was really good, and I had some phenomenal support from the geothermal system through the fall last year, when it started to get really cold outside, and I pumped it back in. I don't remember any details about the temperature differences, but it was, I would just have to say that it was really a big difference, and it really served the purpose. And also the fig is a living proof that the temperature system is working nice in the winter time. What are some unexpected costs? What would you change? No unexpected costs. Everything is just the way I initially thought of making it. The microcontroller system and everything is kind of just built in my brain, so there was no surprises there at all. I am really happy that I made some good drainage, because it's running like crazy in springtime. The water is just flowing out of the ground, so that's really important. It shows we have a lot of groundwater here, and even though it's really steep, there's a lot of water running or flowing through the area, so that was really important. And that's the only thing I would have to say that I was pleasantly surprised by doing. My question: after 1 year of running it, has it been worth the initial cost and time of setting it up? To what you have gained out of it. So yeah, I would yeah, most definitely. I'm at a loss of words. It's so worth it for me. I did all the work myself, and it was a lot of work, but it was fun work, and I really enjoy the journey of trying to learn things about this. I can really exercise my knowledge of microcontrollers and the system, the venting system. I designed that with an actuator, and I'm really able to combine my hobbies, which are growing things and IoT and programming and development like that. So I would have to say it's totally worth it. And to me, it didn't cost too much. It's mainly the building I had to pay for, and the excavator my dad has, and I borrowed that, and my neighbor has an excavator, and we have a truck, so I was able to get the soil, and yeah, it hasn't been too bad. Average night temperature month by month. Yeah, I'll see if I find the data. Also, what about moisture? Yes, the moisture thing. Humidity level, yeah, so again, the thing to remember with this setup is to make sure you circulate so you get the moisture out of it, because the system will take out some of the moisture. I see from my data when I start the system, the humidity goes down significantly, but not enough. So it's not enough to keep it really nice in here. It has to be ventilated a little bit better than that. What would you like to improve, and do you regret some design choices on the layout of the pipes? Yeah, I touched on that. I don't regret it. I think it works perfect for me, and but if I had to do it again, I probably would have done the whole area like the setup that I have in this outer section. What data did you track over this year? Could we get some data? Yeah, of course. I'm going to provide that. I'm going to put a link down, and I can see if I can show some screenshots from that. How much energy was used to keep running? Oh, that's a good question. I should probably put a meter on this greenhouse. I would have to get back to you on that, but I'll try to see if I can find links to everything that's using power in here, and see if I can get that. How did the top layer go? Did it keep a steady temperature? So yeah, the soil is perfect in the summer season and autumn, also spring. In the winter time, I shut everything down so it freezes, and that's about it. Next year, this coming winter, I'm gonna try to see if I can grow something in these beds that like kale or something really cold hardy, so I can see if it will survive through the winter. What is the total capacity of the geothermal volume, and how prone is it to mold? So mold, nothing. Damage, nothing. I don't know. I don't remember. I have some data in the videos previously, and I'll link to that. What were the total cost of material to this setup? I have no idea. I'm sorry. This is a hobby project for me, and I'm gonna use this and use that, and I'm gonna get this and get that, and I don't keep track of it. This is not something that I'm doing for an economic purpose, and I'm trying to save money by growing things. I do this for fun. This is my hobby. So yeah, I don't track everything. So actually I have no idea. I'm sorry. How many plants stayed alive during the winter? So those plants stayed alive, and of course my trees, but they can take the cold. So yeah. The most common problems faced with maintaining this greenhouse: definitely moisture or humidity and temperature. So making sure that everything runs smoothly, and having a nice watering system also helps a lot, because it takes a while to water everything here. Database, ton of data. Yep, I have that. I'm visiting your data page quite often. Yeah, so probably I have a data page open. I'm sorry, I don't remember, because I'm using my own internal system, so I don't remember what I expose outside, but I'll definitely link down to the data page. Could you draw a simple layout of intakes and outtakes and where all the sensors are? I think I figured it out mostly. I have seen build videos a few times, but just to be sure. Okay, so I'm not going to draw it because drawing is not my kind of thing, but I'm going to show everything. How's about that? I think I'm done with the questions. Thank you so much for posting these questions. There were so many good questions and things that I haven't been thinking about talking about. And yeah, I would just have to say thank you. And the enormous support I've been getting on this project. I've been getting some hate, but I'm getting a lot of love from you guys. And this is so much fun to me, and it's for fun. It's not something that if this was a project that I was relying on to be able to support myself, I would probably approach it a little bit more critical. But since this is a fun project for me, I'm just winging everything, and somehow it seems to work out. So yeah, why don't I just show you everything? Okay. entering the greenhouse. Okay, first thing first, let's look at the system in the roof. So I have actually 8 vents here, but I'm only using 4 of them. And that's just because I wanted to test my system and see if this was actually any good at all. And now that I see that it's working, I'm probably gonna extend my system to the last 4 vents. So what I have here is just an actuator, and I'm able to open and close it at whatever rate I want to programmatically. So this opens up and closes automatically, and lets the temperature be controlled much more inside. And that's working very well, I have to say. These are my outlets for the geothermal air, and it's in the middle of the building. They're throwing the air out into different directions, and I wanted to make this a little bit nicer and everything, but I just never did get around to it because I didn't decide on the final design for it or the layout and how it's supposed to work. So that's still a work in progress, and I'm gonna do that someday, I think, when I finally decide. Here I have one of the fans running. Well, it's not running right now, but it's one of the 2 fans that I have. It splits up because I have 4 lines or 4 pipe systems running in the whole greenhouse. So every fan covers 2 pipes. And over here we have some controllers and some of the power supplies. And if we turn over to the other side, there's also some controllers. This is the main controller for the greenhouse, and this is the main node. Let me see if I can get it in. It's too dark, I think. Let me just see. So I made some custom boards, and I also have the microcontroller there, as you can see. So I have several of these running throughout the greenhouse, and they are all connected together. Over here we have the other fan, and that also splits into 2 separate pipes. So it's the exact same setup, and this is also taking the air in and pushing it out in the other direction. So over here we also have some controllers. And as for my sensors, so I'm gonna back out again. I'm sorry, this is a bit messy. So entering the greenhouse, I have one of the temperature probes in ground. It's actually, you can probably see some of the wires going down there. I have, I think I have 1 active, or maybe 2. I see there's 2 lines, I don't remember. I at least have 1 of the soil temperature probes going down there. And also I have a temperature probe going down in the corner, and that's in one of the pipes you can see in the video, one of the red pipes that are actually going deeper into, and the temperature sensor is right about down there, I think 2 meters down. The temperature sensor, so this is just some makeshift sensors. I haven't been paying too much attention to it. I have 1 sensor hanging up there, and I also have 1 of the sensors hanging down there. And yeah, it looks horrible. Don't judge me by this. I'm supposed to do better than this. It's just some sensors hanging. And the temperature for the outside soil, that's beside this pole at 2 meters down. Here are the start of my watering system. That's just something that I have been putting up as late as today. So that's something that I'm gonna have to work more on in the coming days, but at least it's working. So yeah, I think that's about it for the sensors and everything. I also have let me just back out of the greenhouse and show you. So over there I have a weather station with some peripherals, and the main station is down there. This is of course a project that I built from ground up, the PCB cards and everything. So I have made it for, it's been a work in progress for a few years, but now it's finally ready, and it has a ton of sensors. So I'm comparing that with everything inside the greenhouse, so I can see the temperature differences, and I also can make it so I don't water the soil inside here the days that it's raining outside, because then, yeah, it would be just too much water, and I would risk overwatering the whole greenhouse. So there's some intelligence in the works for this, and hopefully I can get it tuned this year. And yeah, you can see the peppers, they're growing nice. Perfect.
Let's just take a quick look at the data. So what I did was I imported all my data from the database into Power BI, and I just made a simple report based on that. As you can see, there's some points here that are incorrect, but the thing is that it was about 3 million records, and I didn't make a program going through everything and correct for mistakes. So yeah, let's just call last year what it is and focus on this year. So I got everything in here, and as you can see, it's based on the different type of sensor that I have. Outside soil, that's the temperature outside, that's the green one. And sensor pipe south, that's the one almost in the middle of the room at 2 meters down, that's the black one. And the sensor pipe west is the west facing sensor. It's on the outside or just on the border of the greenhouse, so that's the red one. And if we just scroll in and just take a look at, well, first of all, as you can see, there is a huge gap here in the data, and that's the winter month. And I know most of you want to see the data from the winter months, but the fact is that the system was just shut down and the computers wasn't hooked up, and yeah, I just forgot about it, and I didn't spend my time looking through all of that. But I have some temperature data from inside the fig, and that's what you can see inside, not this one, but this one. So that's the fig sensor inside the fig room, but I don't have any soil temperatures from that phase, and I'm sorry about that. Next year we will have, or this coming winter, we will of course make sure that everything is running. So as you can see, you can drill down into the really nifty details. And the red one is spiking up and down, up and down, up and down every single day. And that's because that sensor pipe is actually almost connected or laying just beside the heating system. So that's the reason why it's fluctuating this much. The black one, however, is a little bit farther away from the pipes. So that's like more of an average reading from the one that I have closer. And as you can see, it's pretty stable, it's climbing. And the outside temperature now has risen to almost 15 degrees. We had some really good weather, and that's probably the reason for that. I'm expecting this one to slowly go down now really soon, and it's gonna even out more or less. But as you can see, once I got started with the season, everything was working really from the beginning. I got up to a good temperature really fast, and this is the point where I actually started recording or starting the fan system for the first time. And yeah, the temperature rose really fast, and the outside temperature just stayed cool for almost close to May before it started to creep up. And as you can see, we don't have warm weather. So the soil temperature at 2 meters is actually down to 1.3 degrees Celsius in wintertime, and that's not too hot. Okay, those are the sensors in the ground, and I also have the temperature sensors in the greenhouse, so we can put on center 1 meter and roof. And let's just scroll through some bad recordings and get into this. So you can see I rarely go above 40 degrees Celsius, and those readings are more or less based on the days where we've had over, actually, I think we had 32 degrees Celsius. I can actually put on the weather data. So this is from let me just see. So the weather data, that's actually from the weather station outside, and the center 1 meter is my base reading from inside the greenhouse. And as you can see, on those days that we had some really nice weather, you can see we were actually peaking over 30 degrees outside, and yet we were under 40 degrees inside. So it has a really good cooling effect, the system, when it's run on daytime. So if I didn't have that, it would probably creep well above 40 degrees Celsius, even though I have ventilation going, because it's just such a big house, and it actually gonna need some active cooling to be able to run it through those really hot days. But you can also see that the temperature outside, we had frost, night frost, all the way down to 3 degrees, 13th of May. Last frost date for us was actually the 20th of May. So yeah, it's difficult doing gardening here, but that's the fact that we have to follow. And yeah, so you can see the ups and downs for every single day, and that's just about it. I also have a tab for my weather station, so I could put in some more data, like for instance, if we scroll in here, I put on the precipitation total also, so you can see all the rainy days we have, and it's possible to mesh all of this data to my temperatures in ground, and also on my temperatures inside a greenhouse. So if this is something that some of you want to play around with and have a crack at, it's possible for me to upload this whole data set in Power BI. And if some of you know how to use Power BI and have some cool ideas on how to use it, you're free to use my data. The only thing that I would like is to be able to get the result back if you're working on it and you find some good analytics. So yeah, that's just about it. This is Christopher saying, may the force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.